Today's talk is titled Finding My Spirituality, to be delivered by Mike Broadhurst. Mike landed in California after his folks lost their Kansas farm in the early 50s recession. After high school, he finished a PhD in chemistry at UCLA, then 2 more years as a postdoctoral fellow at Berkeley. The next 2 decades were spent raising a family while rising to head of research and development for a global agricultural company's North American business. This included a 4-year assignment living and working in England. A merger of that company followed that prompted a life decision and change in mindset. He and his wife Carol chose to retire early from real jobs to buy and renovate a farm near Cambria. 24 years later, they sold that business to move into town last May. Mike?
See if I can avoid tripping. Okay. Good morning. The room filled up a bit, thank you. All right, let's see if I can find this talk. Oh, there it is. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good, thanks. Here we are today in this beautiful sanctuary. Its 4 walls temporarily safeguarding us from the ordeals and uncertainty of the outside world. A room that resembles the rooms we were born in, with 3 physical dimensions. I spent most of my life comfortably living in these 3 dimensions: length, width, and height. And I neglected another dimension, the spiritual dimension, that seemed available and important to other people. I didn't see it, I didn't feel it, and I didn't need it. Blessed with peace in my life, particularly since saying goodbye to corporate work, I never saw that I might find a benefit from such a dimension. Having said that, the closer I've come to the UUC Cambria and the people here I've come to know during this last year, the more I wanted to understand spirituality with the hope of finding something that might elevate me. No matter how staid my viewpoint was, I thought I should try to branch out. I want to start today then by relating a sense of my love affair with the farm Carol and I built just east of Cambria. 32 acres of work and challenge filled our lives for 24 years. Turning that magic plot of land into a pretty good business helped me tune out the mundane politics and constant exhaustion of my corporate career and began a still unseen crusade to find spirituality. On the farm a year ago, it wouldn't have been possible for me to imagine being here with you today. The long roam started the first morning on the farm in April of 2001. I stepped outside onto the front porch with a cup of coffee and to find sun glistening off of webs covering dozens of holes in the small grassy area next to our shabby house. It needed tons of work like paint and stunk of mouse droppings. Nearby orange trees were full of weeds and wanted water. And I spent the night worrying about a long list of unknowns. But Carol and I had taken that decision together. Every day after that was spent outdoors surrounded by symbiosis, with much to learn and understand, as our UU values suggest, honoring the interdependent web of all existence. And each year following that first date, I anxiously awaited the adult wolf spider's annual fall trek down to Santa Rosa Creek. Those tarantulas had patiently grown those web-covered holes down and by keeping the insects down through the spring and summer. I slowly came to understand how every plant, animal, bacterium, even viruses fill a niche in nature. So do we. The many of you I've already called friends. Like those tarantulas, we each have our role in the world. I think I've found mine. So, Carol and I moved to town last May. Excuse me. I remember well that first day in our new house, surrounded by cardboards everywhere. I asked myself, why did I get up a lifestyle I love to be boxed in again? One thing this last year taught me then is that my farm lifestyle had indeed boxed me in important ways. Age gnawed away at strength and vision, so farming had become a management job just like the one I happily left 25 years earlier. Finding the answer to my question sent me on what I will talk about today, but searching for why I left the farm also left me with a strong sense of fortitude. Carol and I had continued what our forefathers endured to get us to where we are, and then we adapted to our changed world. I wanted to put this recent history on the table and tie it into some UU values prior to unapologetically kicking off this presentation and finding my spirituality by stating that science has guided every decision that I have made during the long slog to get here. Early on, I learned the science came with a toolbox. An important tool in that toolkit is I have become a skeptic. I am only happy with facts as true once they have been tested and justified by reason. So I stand here today, one of 8 billion of us, sentient animals. I share 99.9% of my DNA with each and every one of you. Each of us must also walk around in the isolationist thing we call a body. Fortunately, our ancestors gave us this wonderful but precious tool of language to communicate. Using it, I will try to share the experience with spirituality that we hear so much about in these UUCC services. While I spent 8 decades steering clear of the need for a spiritual realm, I always tried my best to be honest and treat everyone fairly and without prejudice. That kind of just came with the package. Much of my guidance in line then come from the main tenet of science, testing obvious explanations to see if they can hold water. Since moving to town, I discovered UUCC and found you all welcome. Thank you. It might be hard to believe how attractive it's been to a man who spent much of his life doing everything on my own. I want to particularly call out that I felt a great deal of brotherhood and a like-mindedness with the gentlemen that I've come to know in the men's group. Similar points of view and broad-mindedness fill every discussion. It's also important that the people I've met here haven't been taken aback by the fact that I don't believe in a God or any form of transcendentalism. Recent experience with Cambria's UUC has elevated me out of my settled ways of thinking and led me to a question why I have never had a need for a spiritual marrow. I began to search to fill this emptiness. Early on in the hunt, I talked with Diane DeMarco about UUCC membership. She gave me the UUCC pocket guide, which I was going to hold up, but I forgot. But I had read a lot of this, and as much as I could tolerate, I use harsh words because there wasn't much in there to appeal to someone like me. It was way too religious and faith-based. Short articles by people with similar perspectives that contained little logic. It was more about belief than the ideas we often hear talked about here on Sunday, and lacked the depth that I needed to pursue spiritualism. On the other hand, the sheet of UU values we used at the Congregational Circus 3 Sundays ago, and I also forgot to bring that, was a much better reference. It used phrases like, we honor, We celebrate, we adapt, we cultivate, and we declare, as opposed to principles and sources of faith. Actions that made sense to me and brought out the other words in the document. As essential as that is, it still doesn't go far enough to take me down the path toward spirituality that fit me. Research on my own began to look like I was caught in some kind of endless maze. Before I ran across books by a Brit, Paul Hellis. He's an Oxford-educated sociologist and anthropologist, and currently is on the staff at the University of Lancaster. Reading his work instantly opened my mind. He's known for his roles in 2 theological societies, and he's also on the board of Open Theology. A quote from the preface of one of his books, Spiritualities of Life, published in 2010, particularly grabbed my attention. I was extremely fortunate to be born in 1946, Hello started. This meant I have witnessed and in some measure experienced the unfolding of spiritualities of life from the time I came of age during the great inner era known as the 60s. My awareness of what has come to be called the New Age while studying at Oxford. It turns out that this New Age is now history, and Hellos uses his book to bring out and discuss thinking that develops since. The book goes on to discuss changes over the last 60 years to the concept of spirituality before I found the thing that caught my eye. He writes, surprisingly, a recent survey finds that 37% of the recent British sample agree with the statement, I believe that God is something within each person rather than something out there. He then says, whatever might be made of this, and some will express disbelief, the finding serves to direct attention to the inner forms of the sacred. More specifically, it directs attention to looking for spirituality within life, not the life of a transcendent theistic God, but life embedded in the here and now. A life, it can be said, which can only make a true difference when it is experienced by the self, and a life which is very much to do with free expression and thus development of what it is to be truly human. This statement was exactly what I'd been after. Like Hellos, I was born in 1946 and found the rest of the narrative and treatment of spirituality parallel and profoundly impactful on undeveloped thoughts. I'll use a couple of relevant quotes to kick off the way in which my thinking has moved on. There's only one corner of the universe that you can be certain of improving, and that's your own self. This is from Aldous Huxley's 1944 novel, Time Must Have a Stop. Like the ocean is your God self, it remains forever undefiled. And like the ether, it lifts but the winged. Even the sun is your God self. It knows not the ways of the mole, nor seeks the holes of the serpent. But your God self dwells not alone in your being. He who defines his conduct by ethics imprisons the songbird in a cage. That's from Khalil Gibran. I feel it will help you go back to the beginning of my experience with organized religion, why I had such a bad taste in my mouth about anything religious for a good part of my life. When I was 12, my folks began to take me, my brother, and sister to church. I soon felt swallowed into a program intended to magically lead me onto the straight and narrow in what the faithful thought I should believe. There were great expectations of young people. It put the kid like me, I was accustomed to thinking for myself, on edge. I found what I heard and was asked to do distasteful, often ugly. For instance, a bunch of us young people were assembled on Sundays after Sunday services and driven by an elder to member houses. I was required to knock on doors and ask for money. How embarrassing. Of course, the elder stayed in the car. Many people never came to the door. The ones that did weren't happy. Especially my friend there. I don't remember the concept of spirituality being mentioned. The little I remember was the old stories of hardship and devotion of the church founders. Nonetheless, the point was clear. There was an obligation to believe and follow the righteous path. Only faith, whatever that meant to the 12-year-old boy at the time. It was way over the top for me. At the time, the kid I was felt I wasn't a good person. None of what I heard led me to safe harbor, anything of comfort or that aroused me. There are two other episodes during the formative years which were also critical to this account. Both were only successful because I leaned into others. Many years after my church experience, I was an uncertain, confused 18-year-old high school graduate, lacking the maturity needed to struggle through my first big decision, how to step into the next phase of my life. My teenage years seemed rough, like many friends. I don't remember many positive experiences and didn't get support I needed at home. I later inflexibly concluded that booze had trumped the love at home, and my folks' church thing had something to do with trying to deal with that. At 18, however, with my body still trying to deal with dopamine, serotonin, cortisol changes, and all that stuff, I was faced with a choice: getting a job like my buddies or trying college without much of an idea what that meant. My after-school job, part-time job, had evolved, and I could have sold shoes as a full-time job. To aggravate the situation, my best friend Tom immediately went to work in a lumberyard, bought a new truck, and moved into an apartment with his girlfriend. My grades in high school were more than good enough, but my main outside activities were to hang with the guys, bullshit, smoke cigarettes, and try to find some beer. So I had applied to the local college that had just changed its name from Orange State College to Cal State Fullerton and was accepted. I didn't have much of a clue of what I wanted to do. I finally settled on giving college a try and continuing to work part-time. Ambition and direction were completely missing. Today, I can say with certainty that the intervening 60-plus years proved memorable thanks to two special people that came into my life and helped me find my way. Dr. Don Shields, my freshman chemistry instructor, and later my wife Carol. I still, excuse me, I still clearly remember a day in the middle of the first semester sitting in a class of several hundred other freshmen in a big lecture hall they used for 101's classes. Don asked a lot of questions and usually looked for raised hands. A shy kid, I sat in the middle of the hall so I could see and hear well, but never raised my hand. This time he looked my way and pointed. "Mike, how do you get water out of acetic acid?" he asked. I remember stammering around a bit before I admitted I didn't know. He impatiently said, "Add acetic anhydride." I sat there embarrassed. Oops. Excuse me for a second. Too much going on. Okay.
Need some water?
That would help, thank you.
There's a cup right there on the lectern.
Oh, is there?
On the lectern.
I'll grab this one. Thank you. As bad as that moment had seemed, he soon took me under his wing. To keep a long story short, today I give Don 99.9% of the success I had as in becoming a chemist and more generally a good scientist. He was hard on me while supportive and set standards. Carol gets credit for so many things, particularly helping the naive young man I was understand what it meant to be a man. This is a more fundamental story, but years after Dawn got me going in science, I went to work for a big company and spotted her in the lab next door the first day. I soon learned that there was much more there than a beautiful woman, and she's been with me since. Thinking of my grandsons then, it became clear to me that things that keep our universe from becoming a chaotic mess, the laws of gravity, conservation of energy, and thermodynamics, are the same no matter where we look. Mankind has been following physics for a few thousand years, and more carefully since Newton published his book Principia in 1687. Modern science continues to build on principles he articulated, but even Einstein's theories, now a century old, didn't move the bar very far in a new direction. The speed of light remains a constant, as fast as anything can go. And the position of a specific electron in everything from the current that we use to run our appliances to the molecules that we manipulate to make new drugs is uncertain. So why would this be important to me? Looking out at your faces, my guess is that each of you believe you have a soul. This is a seat of affection that goes beyond day-to-day activities and ultimately solidifies the good people you are. A curse of human consciousness, then, is knowing that someday my life will end. Considering this, I like to remember my life as part of nature's many bundled cycles. The picture of my grandson reminds me of where we start. In another cycle, the atmosphere's oxygen sustains me, while the carbon dioxide I exhale helps keep plants' photosynthetic cycle going by coupling with the sun's energy to renew their life. In nature's cycle, dead leaves blow to the ground and in the fall's cold wind and become mulch. Spring's warmth and rain follow. The mulch retains water and liberates nutrients to work with the plant's photosynthesis and a host of microbes so that the plants can use the carbon dioxide I exhaled to grow and produce flowers and begin the cycle again. Every day I watch nature's parade as my grandchildren grow and flourish. I delight in knowing that the stuff I'm made of will eventually be returned to the world's environment where it came from. I take solace that at least some of those atoms and molecules that gave me life will be passed on to new life forms. Those atoms, indeed everything, no matter how smart, are part of this vastness that surrounds us. So, I found the essence of my soul and a meeting for spirituality, that missing dimension, in the rhythm and wonder of the universe we are part of. Let me explain. First, there's the community I find with the people in this room and the other people that I've come to know well. Then, there are 8 billion other people out there, and all the other species of animals that share this wonderful temperate climate our Earth provides. More so, the plants that purify the atmosphere and provide food, aerobic bacteria that keep us healthy, and anaerobic bacteria that take care of all the waste. I even appreciate the stinging jellyfish that terrify me when I snorkel in Hawaii. I can go on, but I'll shift gears to a related story to end. A few thousand years ago, a group of my ancestors were resting on a hillside, waiting for the sun to rise while making up yarns about those twinkling lights in the night sky. They didn't know that a man would come along named Galileo Galilei, a true polymath, many years in the future. He would use his fascination with optical magnification to study the heavens and change history. I wonder if even he could believe the perspective today, 480 years after his death. I find it truly amazing what we've learned. Our Milky Way galaxy alone is a collection of 300 billion, with a B, stars that gravity long ago pulled together, and in many cases, they're planetary systems. My head tries to explode when I consider the Milky Way is but one galaxy in the heavens containing more galaxies than the Milky Way has stars. Such thinking always exhausts me as if I were trying to run a marathon at 20,000 feet. Other odds and ends stored in my brain then remind me that our closest neighbor, the star Proxima Centauri, is more than 4 light years away. That's roughly 40 trillion Earth miles. After that, I get more comfortable knowing that much of the stuff out there has been around for about 13 billion years, as far as we can tell. And all those physical properties, gravity, energy, and thermodynamics, behave just like they did at the beginning. This leaves me with the belief that some big change in my grandson's lifetime is impossible. This last story brings me to something that I just added because of the Cambria Alliance student speaker event I attended a couple of weeks ago. 4 wonderful young people that talked about student mental health. The winner goes on to a regional competition next month. My talk today then is about something that's important to me. These students inched my thinking a little bit more toward the impact of what's going on in our country now. What has previously happened to immigrant communities and the historical impact of tragedies like Japanese detention camps, restricting North Americans, Native Americans to reservations, slavery, and more in American history. The abuse of our government has chosen to inflict makes me wonder. Historians generally acknowledge that the great thinkers of Athens 2,500 years ago stimulated a turning point in mankind's history. Some of us had by then begun to value personal well-being alongside the struggle for survival. Today we can look back over those 2,500 years since those Greeks. All the technological change, so much more conflict, but small steps like the United States. Again, recent history makes me wonder about the future for our young. Has stagnation in the way governments now deal with citizens led us to a time for another turning point? Maybe a major inflection point? Maybe even a need to change the paragon of democratic virtue, the U.S. representative system? This spirituality I now pay attention to begs me to get involved in positive ways beyond being satisfied that my life has followed nature's cycles. I can ask myself what small steps I can take to better the world, for my grandsons, for those student speakers who will inherit our world, and for everyone. I believe becoming part of the empathy and open-mindedness of this UUCC community was a step in the process of making this happen. So I'll finish my words today by leaving you with one more quote from Edgar Allan Poe. "Those who dream by day are cognizant of many things that escape those who only dream at night." Thanks for listening.
Wow.